Picture this. It's 11:47 p.m. You're lying in bed, you can't sleep, and you open your banking app for, I don't know, maybe the fourth time today. Not because anything changed, not because you're expecting a deposit, but just to look, to feel something, to get that little hit of either relief or dread, depending on what the number says. And here's the wild part. You don't even know why you do it. You just do. That was me for 12 months straight. Every single day, sometimes twice a day, I checked my net worth. I logged it in a spreadsheet. I tracked every single dollar of change, every market move, every paycheck, every stupid impulse buy. I saw all of it in real time. And what I found out completely changed how I think about money. Not in the I got rich overnight way, in a deeper, more uncomfortable way. So let's talk about it. My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time thinking about personal finance and the psychology behind why we make such irrational decisions with our money. If you're someone who works hard, earns decent money, but still feels like you're not actually getting ahead, like the finish line keeps moving, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. I didn't start tracking my net worth every day because I'm some kind of financial obsessive. Okay, I kind of am, but that's not why. I started because I had a conversation with a coworker. We were roughly the same age, similar salaries, both had 401ks, both owned cars, neither of us owned a home yet. And she mentioned, totally casually, that her net worth had crossed $80,000. I went home that night, sat down with a piece of paper and tried to figure out my own number, and I was terrified of what I'd find. Here's how I did it. You take everything you own, savings, investments, retirement accounts, the resale value of your car, and you add it all up. That's your assets. Then you take everything you owe, credit card balances, student loans, car loans, any other debt, and that's your liabilities. You subtract liabilities from assets. What's left is your net worth. Mine was $11,400. Now, look, $11,400 isn't zero, but I was 28. I had been working full-time for 6 years, and somehow, I had barely moved the needle. And the worst part, I genuinely had no idea. I wasn't paying attention. I was just earning, spending, existing financially, and assuming things were fine. That night, I made a spreadsheet, and I promised myself I'd check it every single day for a year. Here's what I thought would happen. I thought I'd hit a few big milestones, watch my investments grow, maybe get a raise at some point, and by the end of the year feel pretty good about my progress. Here's what actually happened. In the first 30 days, my net worth went down by about $600. Not because anything went wrong, just regular life, a car repair, a birthday dinner I overspent on, a slow week in the market. But seeing it go down in a spreadsheet with a date stamp hit very differently than I expected. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Alex, this sounds like it would make you anxious. And you'd be right. At first, it absolutely did. I became weirdly hyper-aware of every purchase. I'd check the app, see my number drop by $47, and spend 10 minutes tracing it back to a Chipotle order. But here's what most people don't realize. That anxiety, it's not a problem. It's actually data. Most of us operate in a financial fog. We know vaguely that we have some money and some debt, and we hope the gap is trending in the right direction, but we don't know precisely. And that lack of precision is exactly why so many of us end up at 35, 40, 45, wondering what happened. According to a 2023 survey by Empower, nearly 60% of Americans don't know their net worth within $25,000. Not within $100,000, within $25,000. That means most people are walking around with a wildly inaccurate picture of their own financial reality. I was one of them, and that vague optimism, that feeling of, I think I'm doing okay, it's one of the most financially dangerous mindsets you can have. All right, let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets really interesting. After my first month, down $600, not great, something shifted. Month 2, I got a paycheck, made my regular contributions to my 401k, and the market had a decent week. My net worth jumped about $1,400 in 30 days. $1,400 in a month felt huge, and I thought, okay, if I can do $1,400 a month, that's almost $17,000 a year. I'll be at $28,000 by next December. But here's the thing, that's not actually how this works, and this is the math that most people fundamentally misunderstand. Let me use a simple example. Say you have $10,000 invested in a broad index fund. You contribute $500 a month at an average annual return of 7%, which is a reasonable long-term estimate after inflation for something like the S&P 500. Here's what happens. After year 1, about $16,300. Solid. After year 5, about $45,000. Now we're talking. After year 10, nearly $95,000 from $500 a month. After year 20, $265,000. Here's what jumps out. Between year 1 and year 5, you added roughly $29,000. Between year 15 and year 20, same 5-year window, same $500 a month, you'd add over $90,000. The inputs are identical, the time frame is the same, but the output is 3 times bigger. Why? Because by year 15, you're not just earning returns on your contributions, you're earning returns on the returns. The number is working for you independent of what you do. That's compounding. And it sounds like a cliche, but when you watch your own net worth on a daily basis, you see this start to happen. The moment when your investment gains in a single month start to exceed what you're contributing from your paycheck. That happened to me in month 9 of my experiment. My portfolio grew by $1,100 in 1 month from market appreciation alone. I contributed $620 that month. The market did more for me than I did. I'm not going to pretend that wasn't an emotional moment, because it was.
Now, here's the part most finance videos skip. Daily net worth tracking almost broke me psychologically, twice. The first time was in March. The market dropped about 6% over 2 weeks. Nothing catastrophic by historical standards, just one of those routine corrections that happen all the time. But on a daily tracker, you don't see 6% correction over 2 weeks. You see your net worth drop by $200, then $340, then $180, then down another $400. Each day feels like a fresh loss. Behavioral economists call this loss aversion. The research, most notably from Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, suggests that the pain of losing $100 is psychologically roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $100. Which means that on a bad week where you're losing $200 a day, you're experiencing the emotional equivalent of losing $400 a day. Every single day. I understood this concept before I started. I had read about it. I could explain it to someone else, and I still almost sold everything in March. I didn't, obviously, but here's what stopped me. I went back to my spreadsheet, not the daily column, but the monthly column, and I looked at the trend line over 8 months. And despite all the noise, despite the drops and the corrections and the anxiety, the line went up. Not smoothly, not predictably, but consistently, over time, in the right direction. That's the second lesson from this experiment. Your daily net worth is mostly noise. Your monthly net worth is signal. And your yearly net worth is the truth. The problem is that our brains are not wired for this. We're wired for immediate feedback. We're wired to react to what's happening right now, not to trust in a trend that only becomes visible over months or years. And that's why most investors underperform the very funds they're invested in, because they buy high when things feel exciting and sell low when things feel scary. According to Dalbar's annual quantitative analysis of investor behavior, in the 20-year period ending in 2022, the average equity fund investor earned about 6.3% annually, while the S&P 500 returned about 9.8%. Same market, same instruments, but the average investor earned 35% less because of behavioral decisions, buying and selling at the wrong times. Tracking your net worth every day won't fix this automatically, but it does something really valuable. It forces you to sit with volatility and not react. Every time you see a drop and you don't sell, you're building a muscle. You're training yourself. Here's the thing I was most wrong about at the start. I thought investing was going to be the biggest driver of my net worth growth. Turns out, at least in the early years, I was mostly wrong.
For the first half of the year, the single biggest driver of my net worth improvement wasn't my investments, it was my savings rate. At the start of the year, I was saving about 12% of my take-home pay. Around months 4, I made a pretty boring decision. I started packing lunch to work 3 days a week instead of buying it. I switched my phone plan. I canceled 2 subscriptions I wasn't really using. Total savings from those changes? About $230 a month. $230 a month doesn't sound revolutionary. Over 12 months, that's $2,760. Put that into an index fund. At 7%, over 30 years, that $2,760 becomes almost $21,000. That $230 a month has a 30-year value of $21,000 from packing a sandwich. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Alex, but I can't just save my way to wealth. And you're right, there's a ceiling to cutting expenses. You can't cut your way to a $2 million portfolio. At some point, income becomes the dominant lever. But here's what watching my net worth every day taught me about the income side. Most of us dramatically underestimate the cost of not negotiating. I got a raise at month 7. I had been at my company for 3 years and never asked for one. I just assumed it would come. And when I looked at my spreadsheet, when I saw in actual numbers what 3 years of flat income had cost me, I sat down, prepared a case, and asked for a 14% increase. I got 10%, which added about $7,000 to my annual salary in one conversation, one uncomfortable 15-minute conversation. The math on that, invested over 30 years at 7%, over $900,000 in additional wealth. From one conversation I kept putting off because I felt awkward about it. Quick note on debt, because I think most people have this backwards. I had a student loan at 5.8% interest. For a long time, I was aggressively trying to pay it down. I thought, get rid of the debt, then invest. Clean slate, fresh start. Watching my net worth every day changed my thinking on this. When I was paying down debt fast, I'd see my net worth improve in a satisfying, predictable way. Every extra payment showed up as a clear, linear bump. That felt great psychologically, but it wasn't optimal mathematically. Here's the framework I now use. If your debt interest rate is below what you can reasonably expect to earn on investments over the long run, and we've established that a diversified index fund has historically returned around 7 to 10%, then every dollar you throw at that low-interest debt instead of investing has an opportunity cost. That 5.8% loan? Every extra dollar I put toward it earned me 5.8%. Every dollar I instead invested had historically earned me closer to 8 or 9%. That gap, compounded over decades, is not trivial. Now look, this isn't a blanket never pay down debt argument. High-interest debt, credit cards at 22, 24, 28%, that is a financial emergency. Pay that down aggressively. The math is unambiguous. But sub-6% debt, that's a nuanced conversation, and you should have it with your actual numbers in front of you, not with a vague feeling. So, 1 year, every single day, what happened? My net worth went from $11,400 to $31,800. That's a little over $20,000 in 12 months. I want to be careful not to spin this as some dramatic win, because the math was pretty ordinary. Consistent contributions, plus a reasonably good market year, plus a raise, plus slightly better spending decisions. Nothing magic, no secret strategy, no day trading, no crypto moonshot. But the number is almost secondary to what I actually learned. And here's what I'd want you to take from this. Your net worth is a number. Write it down today, right now, after this video. Add up your assets, subtract your liabilities, write it down, whatever the number is, whether it's $200 or negative $40,000, you need to know it, because a problem you can measure is a problem you can solve. The math is on your side, but only if you leave it alone. The worst thing you can do is invest and then panic sell in a correction. Time in the market beats timing the market, every single time. Your savings rate matters more than you think, especially early on. A 5% increase in your savings rate, not your income, just what you keep, can shave years off your timeline to financial independence. One conversation about your salary, about your interest rate, about your debt can be worth more than years of optimization. So stop putting off the awkward financial conversations. And maybe most importantly, you cannot manage what you do not measure. The reason most people feel stuck financially isn't a lack of income, it's a lack of clarity, and you can't solve a problem you refuse to look at directly. I'm not going to tell you that checking your net worth every day will make you rich. It won't, but it will make you honest, and honest is the first step. If you're someone who's been avoiding your financial reality, who closes the banking app a little too fast, who makes rough estimates rather than knowing the actual number, I want you to start today, not tomorrow, tonight. Before you go to sleep, open a spreadsheet, write down your assets and your liabilities, and subtract. That number, whatever it is your starting point. Every great financial story starts somewhere. Yours can start tonight. If this video helped you think about money differently, please hit that thumbs up button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. And subscribe if you want more content that actually engages with the math and the psychology behind why we make the financial decisions we make. I'll see you in the next one.